Power to pre-scoring. Let's go.
Touchdown. Let's go. That was awesome. I'm unstoppable.
With the help of an eSpark.
Yeah, no more buffering or disconnecting. Just fast, reliable service to help me get in the end zone.
Fiber internet from AnySpark gives you the speed you need to log on and level up. Residential, business, and voice services available. Sign up today at www.anyspark.com.
Welcome in another edition of Bourbon South. Chase Parham, and today, Katie Peninger. KY, Kentucky Bourbon Trail, Lewis Communications. I'm excited for you to hear from her today, hear the story, where she is in her bourbon process, as well as talk about a pretty special thing coming up here this week on this Tuesday, and really something pretty special for the Kentucky Bourbon Trail in general. So we're going to get into all those things and more here with us today. Katie, I've known you for a little bit, but it's been cool to hear about this specific thing. You and I were talking a few days ago, and as we're getting going, you don't always know everything about somebody or what's happening. And I had no idea that you were one of the architects on what is essentially a reimagination of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail right now.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Chase. And I know, same thing here. It's like I knew a little bit about what you did, but I had no idea the number of podcasts you're involved in. It's just incredible. So it's been great to learn more about what you do. But yes, thank you. We're excited about all of this. I am one of a large team that has been working on this for sure.
So a lot of reasons that I wanted to talk to you, and one of them, we're going to get into the background of this, but as people have been hearing on MPW Digital and on our network here the last 2 days, the World Bourbon Toast coming up for really more than 24 hours. It's all of Tuesday, but we're going to tell you all the ways to take part in that. But just as a heads up, to make sure you have the URL, you have the background, that's kybourbontrail.com/World Bourbon Toast for that. So go there. See the videos, see the frequently asked questions, see all the ways that things are going on. And I know it's a really hectic time for you right now as we're recording this on a Sunday afternoon prior to publication here in a day and a half, something like that, when this thing does go live. So I know it's been a long time coming to get to this point, not just for celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, which was sort of the impetus, but the World Bourbon Toast, which is a really cool thing that we'll get to as this thing goes on. You are the VP of Account Services for Lewis Communications, and I don't really know whether to start in bourbon or sort of how we got here, but just sort of in general. Give us a little background on, because I want to talk about our bottles. People can see it behind us if they're doing the video version. If you're doing the podcast version, you can't see this, but a bottle that really ties into the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. Reason that we picked it for this, the Russell's Reserve 13-year, 114.8 proof on that one. So we're going to review that for you. We also each have our individual Russell's Reserve Private Barrel Selection barrel picks. I want to talk a little bit about that as it goes on as well. But a lot of people have no idea sort of exactly what we're doing here. So tell us a little bit. You know, I know your husband's huge into bourbon, but sort of when you got into, how did we get here? What was sort of the basis for going strictly from Lewis Communications to now something like the Kentucky Bourbon Trail?
Sure. We work with a number of different clients in all different kinds of categories. And about 7 years ago, we were working with, we got a call to work with one Casey Jones in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Fascinating story there. That's probably a whole story for a different day. But we worked with them on a rebrand and kind of helped them get their brand really launched and out there. And we've stayed in touch over the years, and it'll be 2 years this December. Peg randomly reached out and she said, "Hey, did you see the Kentucky Bourbon Trail issued an RFP for a rebrand and a new digital experience?" We hadn't seen it. She said, "I really think you guys should respond to this." So, it was a week before Christmas. We're about to shut down for the holidays, but we took a look at this, and we all have a love of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail just from knowing about it. I mean, you can't help it if you live in this area. You have a sense of pride for it. And we thought, we're going to go after this. So we did. And we felt like this might be a long shot, a Tennessee agency going after the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. Not sure how this is going to go. But we were fortunate enough to make it to the final round. We went and met with them, and truly, I can speak for us. It was love at first sight from the standpoint of we walked in, started talking with them, and it's like, gosh, if every client relationship could be like this, to walk into a room of people that you just instantly click with. I know we walked out of that room that day going, oh my gosh, we have to get this. We've got to work with these people. They're just the best. And so that, we were fortunate enough to win the piece of business. And that set us off on this journey. And so now, about a year and a half later, where we are now is we just launched the new website in midsummer, launched the new brand in June, at the end of June, for the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. And so part of that process, it's been we did a lot of research. We did our homework. We visited about 25 distilleries, and we're still trying to make it more.
Tough job, Katie.
I know. My bourbon loving husband was always like, you're going where? Now you're doing what? And I was like, I know, it's for work. I'm sorry.
Product research.
Yes, I'm doing homework. So, but it was such an incredible experience because it opened our eyes to the people in this industry. One, they're brilliant. And the stories, every time you think you've heard the best story, you meet somebody else and you fall in love with every story and every person that you meet, because it's just fascinating how people got to where they are and what they're doing. And so a lot of unique things about this industry. But, we completed that research and led us to our a brand strategy for the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, which was, we told them, you guys have the best problem. You had this brilliant idea that started 25 years ago with 7 distilleries, and you've outgrown yourself. And now you've got 46 distilleries and counting on the trail. It is growing at such a speed. 2.5 million visitors are coming every year to the trail. I mean, it's just incredible, the growth that they've had. But this was the perfect time to help reimagine what that experience is for a visitor. Because in the course of learning and that research that we were doing, we realized so many people are unaware how many distilleries are out there. They don't know the landscape of Kentucky. They don't know how spread out Kentucky is, or all the things that Kentucky has to offer. And so that's where we kind of took a step back, and together with the Kentucky Distillers Association, we worked with them to, okay, how do we reinvent this in a way that makes this the best experience for somebody coming to visit, that helps educate people on what the trail is today. Because we know there were, a lot of misperceptions out there too of people have no idea what all the trail has to offer, from these incredible culinary experiences. Now there's modern experiences, there's art. The distilleries have really done a great job of just really increasing the offerings and what all there is to do. Because, I think what we even found is when you're trying to go to all of these different distilleries, you do need some things to break it up in between these. And we're really trying to get people to not want to rush through their experience, but really slow down and appreciate each of those experiences, and enjoy the trail. So,
it's one of those deals where, and like you said, I want to go way into more detail about Casey Jones and their story on another podcast episode. You were giving me some of that background in our conversations earlier in the week, but it ties into what I was thinking. This podcast exists because of the stories and the relationships that people have with family and bourbon and all the things that coexist in that area. It's why the account that you have and what you're trying to bring out and make this as well. But use them for a second. I guess give a little bit of background on that, because even like the Casey Jones thing, you're talking about this small distillery that had this really rich history and these great stories, and even where Casey Jones gets his name from, all the way to now this, how do you modernize that into into the 21st century, into competing against other distilleries, and sort of how you take what is so good, but then you're also trying to find what the next step is as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the stories of everybody really started, I think, that inspiration for really getting to understand what the Kentucky Bourbon Trail is today, and how we help the world see what it is. Because, I think something that became so obvious to us it's so much bigger than Kentucky. When you look at what even the Kentucky Distillers Association is doing truly for the world with the organizations that they're a part of, you've got people all over the world trying to learn from what they have done in Kentucky. And it is the home of bourbon. It's where it started. 95% of the world's bourbon is coming out of Kentucky. That's incredible. And so you think about, what does that mean to people today? And I think that's when we started talking, people, again, that live in a geography around Kentucky are very aware of it, know what it is, have watched the growth in front of their eyes. But the minute you get outside of that geography, people don't know that. They have their own ideas of what it is. We even talked to an Australian bourbon club who said that, they've been coming to the trail for a number of years. And a lot of times it's people's first introduction and trip to the United States. Mm-hmm. And I said, what do they think when they're coming here? What are they expecting? And he said, I'll admit a lot of them think it's a lot of country and dirt roads. And he said, and they're blown away when they get here and see how beautiful Kentucky is and see these modern experiences, and they all leave wanting to go back because you can't experience it in a couple of days. It's something you can really take time with. But how that, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Listen, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so how that played out as far as the brand is it led our team to quickly see people have to see it and feel it. And this has to feel like something different. This has to project a modern feel. We have to make sure that the website, typically it's going to be people's first introduction to this. We need to make sure that they get the best possible feeling right up front of what to expect so that we can manage their expectations and really open their eyes to what the Kentucky Bourbon Trail is today and what it has to offer.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think has been, genius, frankly, on y'all's part, is even just the map of the regions where you go, okay, you're going to go here and you're going to see these in this area and you're going to go to this area. Because I think even for Americans that aren't really entrenched in bourbon, and, you talk about that the person planning the trip's not always the person that's obsessed with it. It's a group gathering. It's families, it's brothers and sisters and all this kind of thing, or however it's set up. But not everyone is this bourbon head that's just obsessed with all 46 distilleries. And by having a map where you go, okay, it's here and here and here and here. And I likened it to Irish or Scottish golf, where if you're going to go plan a trip in Europe, you're not just going to show up and go, we're going to play St. Andrews today, and we're going to play Carnoustie today, and we're going to do this. That's not how it's going to work. You're going to be really putting the map together. And this is set in the same way, because I'll talk to people who go, yeah, you go the Bourbon Trail and you're going to spend a couple days. It's like, well, okay, but you better pick a couple, because it's more like a month if you're trying to do the whole thing here. You're not going to hit everybody on the way out of town. But I think there is that, and it's just an American story that I find so fascinating about the Kentucky Bourbon Trail is they're competing. The bourbon industry has never been more competitive from the standpoint of we've had the big boom and we've had all these different distilleries pop up and all these things, yet they're cooperating, they're working together, they're realizing that there is something that they have to do at the same time that makes it better for everybody. Sort of, what have you learned is in like the background of that? And, look, in a lot of American businesses, that would not be the case. What's kind of set them apart to allow that level of cooperation?
Oh, man. It's something that has really stuck with us. And again, it's something that has inspired us along the way, because it is remarkable. You don't, like you said, you don't see that often in business. And so it's this beautiful camaraderie that you see with people. And, I remember we've talked to so many people, and one of my favorite quotes when we were talking to one of the distilleries, he said, we're competitors on the shelf. That's it. At the end of the day, we're here to help each other. We're here to support each other. And you truly see how they are living that out in so many different ways. When people have questions or challenges, how they rally together. And, I was thinking about the Bourbon Hall of Fame event was just this past week. And I was so fortunate to get to go and witness that. And sitting in that room, you look around and you go, this product is bringing all of these people together, and there's art and heritage behind it, and craftsmanship. But at the end of the day, I look around that room and I go, it's a room full of people that are about relationships and people and helping each other. And that is what you can see they are so passionate about. And you see that at so many different touch points. And I think even like you and I were talking about the other day with bourbon groups all over. One of the ones, Matt's here in Nashville, we brought them in to just have them do a tasting and let us watch them and ask questions and listen to them talk to each other. And, that night they did this rare bottle pick night, and you saw guys bringing in things that they knew one of the other guys in the group had always wanted to try. And I watched this happen, and he was like, man, I brought this for you to try. And he's like, it's not even open. I'm not touching that. And I said, he's not going to open that unless you open it. But you think about, that's a moment, that's a memory that's more important, like we were talking about, than even what it was they were drinking. It's that they want to do something special for each other. And they even commented, they said the bourbon brings us together. It's the facilitator. But our group, it's about friendship. It's about relationship. It's about being there for each other, supporting each other, and fellowship, which I think, again, is such a beautiful piece that you see from, how cool to see that, not only from the industry perspective, but carried all the way out through the people enjoying the end product. It's amazing.
So I know my co-host, Steve Thomason's not with me today. He's yelling at me right now because we have not popped a bottle. We have not poured a glass. It is our never-ending problem is that I'm the journalist. I just start having conversations, and he's going, hey, bourbon,
Yes,
bourbon. So
yes.
let's get into the first one. Again, as we mentioned, then we'll continue talking. We have the Russell's Reserve 13. Really special bottle. 114.8 proof on this one. It won the Fred Minnick Whiskey of the Year in 2021. It was double gold at the San Francisco Wine Spirits Competition in 2023 as well here. And it does so many things right. I can go ahead and tell you before we start, and you probably could pick this up from the show. We were going to pick a bottle that we were very into here with this Russell Reserve 13. But I guess two questions before we do this, and we've poured it out. I've got mine. I am using a Glencairn glass if you're in a podcast form here. And then you're using a Libby glass that we'll talk about here in a little bit. I'm not going to do that quite yet, but we're going to talk about that in a second. Let's get a sip. Let's go ahead and do that. And then I've got a couple questions, and we'll come back and give our thoughts on it after that.
Okay.
To you.
All right.
So usually we're like cheering and clinking, but it's fine. We'll not sound effects too much. And I'll give it away. I went ahead and had a little bit before we started the show to go ahead and get my... Well, we have this thing we've realized is that the first drink's never the right one. Like, you have to do it and almost condition your taste buds and your tongue for it and then come back again, because the first one is always going to be a little more medicinal, a little more something, just simply getting started with your drink there. And look, I know you like your champagne, so what's been your bourbon journey to here? Like, where are we on this? Because you said you're married to a bourbon head, and you've been going to plenty of distilleries and whatnot. It seems like you're at least developing more appreciation for it as you go.
Oh my gosh, completely. Yes, like I told you, I am very new on my bourbon journey, and I learn something new every day. And I'm definitely not the one that can sit here and go into all the nuances like some people can. But it's so interesting, I think, as we have tasted at so many different places, to find things that you are so unexpected that it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that I would like that. And I will fully admit, before coming on this yesterday, I was doing my due diligence and homework and tasting to figure out what are my favorites, because I think every day that's a new learning. And so it's this Russell's 13, as I was tasting different ones, one, it felt so appropriate that we would choose some Wild Turkey products in honor of Jimmy Russell's 70th year. Again, how incredible. But I think I'm finding, like this one in particular, I actually love some of the things that I can taste that that make it not too sweet. And I actually always thought that I like things sweeter, but I think I'm learning that I don't like as sweet as I thought I did. So
It's the thing where you and I were talking. You said, "Hey, I'm not gonna be able to pick out every note," and I said, "No, that's what I love because." Look, we're going to do some episodes on this show as time goes on, and we have over the course of the different iterations where we get really in the weeds and we do the show for the bourbon lover. But I'll be honest, this the one thing I hate sometimes about the industry is it's intimidating. Is you go, hey, I don't understand, I don't know what that's like, and really trying to pull the curtain back and go, just drink what you like. Try a bunch of different things. Yes. Try corn heavy, rye heavy, wheat heavy. Try the different options that you have. Try different proofs. Try different distillers. Try different years, and just drink what you like. There's no right answer to any of this stuff. It's all out there. Next week we're going to look at a couple Asian bourbons that are only available, or Kentucky bourbons, but only available in Asia. Let me be careful there. Yes. A couple Kentucky bourbons that are only available in Asian. And a lot of the Asian culture likes really, really low proofs, where that would not do anything for me for the most part. We'll talk about that next week, but there's still no right answer. I mean, we're talking about major distilleries that are putting out products for people with those palates and with their culture and the way they like it. So, I think that's a really neat thing, is just simply try something, hate it, don't hate it. And there's good bottles at every price point. You don't have to go into some crazy amount of money. I had a listener and a subscriber message me the other night and said, hey, I'm just trying to get into bourbon. Can you give me a couple bottles simply to give it a chance? And I'm like, yeah, let me find two $30, $40 bottles and go, hey, just see what you think. And This is not going to be your favorite bottle ever, but it's going to tell you what you like. Those are two different things. It's not that you're going to love this. It's that you're going to go, oh, I kind of tasted that, or I didn't like that heavy, spicy rye finish. I want to come off that and whatnot. And I think that's what's so huge here. But this one you picked, and it's funny you said that about you can get stuff that's not sweet, overly sweet fruit heavy. It's maybe a top 5 drink for someone who's trying to figure that out and figure out where they're going, because they bill it. They give you tasting notes on the bottle for anybody in the thing. Again, here's kind of a close up of the bottle, Russell's 13. And it says here on the bottle, age 13, delivering aromas and flavors of aged oak and sweet caramel. Smooth finish that you have come to blah, blah, blah. Actually, there's other tasting notes. Hold on, let me find it. I've got it here from them. And they're correct, but everybody has a little different palate. They have a different thought. It says sweet and warming, dried dark fruit notes, complete with charred confectionery notes of charred marshmallow and burnt brown sugar. That's going to be a little intimidating for most people to try to pick up all those things. But yeah. and I'll let you tell me what you're getting. But this is a candy bar on the front end. It's got a ton of sweetness. It has got the chocolate and the nougat and like all the stuff. Once you realize you can taste it, because that's what I love about bourbon. Sometimes you can't pick out the flavor, but when somebody tells you that's what it tastes like, then you go, oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah. I couldn't get there. But then there's a long finish on this. There's some stuff that really gets into you on that more smoky side too. I mean, it is maybe one of the most variable start to finish and how it changes bottles that you could find out there right now.
Gosh, yeah. And you're right. I certainly, when you list all those things, it's like, oh yeah, I do get that. Because I think my simple tasting is it's sweet on the front end. I definitely taste that little bit of char on the back. And that's the piece that, like, surprisingly, I really like that, because I think it cuts down the sweet for me. And so I enjoy that. It just makes it easier drinking for me. And I wouldn't have expected that, honestly, because I think I used to think starting in this that I liked things that just stayed more sweet, but I actually really like that finish at the end of this. But
have you found that you like a bourbon that has a little, deeper, longer finish for the most part?
I don't really know, honestly.
Okay. No, good answer. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I will be totally honest. I'm not really sure, because I think it depends on what it is. And like you were saying, it's surprising. I know my husband usually doesn't typically like ryes, but he continues to try different ones, and he'll find one and be like, oh my gosh, I love this. And so I think that always exploring and trying different things and not ever thinking, well, I don't like X, so I'm not going to try any of that. Man, you're missing out because they are all so different. And you might find one that you do like that you never knew. But that piece about, the intimidation of the flavors, I was going to say that is something that really also stood out to us when we were talking to people. Back to the people planning these trips sometimes aren't the bourbon people, and they don't know anything about it. Maybe they've never tried it. But it's still a fun experience to go to the distillery. And I think what's really cool is they are really trying to make sure that they are creating experiences that if you don't drink, you're still going to have fun. If you don't like bourbon, you're still going to have fun. But then also for people that want to be introduced to bourbon, making it as least intimidating as possible, because you're right, it can be intimidating when you hear people that do know what they're talking about. It's like, oh gosh, I can't talk like that.
Yeah, you get the guy that goes, no, that's not almond, that's pistachio, and you're like, oh, sure,
right.
like, okay, like, yeah, just quit.
I'll take your word for it. I like it.
I like it. Yeah.
Well,
it's like my co-host. He has to make himself go, it's smooth. And he's like, that's a terrible taste note. But he's like, I don't know. It's what I like. It's smooth. And it's like,
yes,
okay.
I like it.
Yeah, that's where we are there. It's cool. But no, it's tons of depth of flavor. I think that's the thing is when you pick up the good bottles, the better bottles like this, because it's fantastic. It's going to be hard to find on a shelf. You can get it on the secondary market. And it's worth a little higher price point than you would not normally spend, probably. That's not going to be such a high, intimidating price point that is dumb. I think it sits in a really good thing there that you can locate it on the internet. I did some searching around and Googling and finding for this bottle yesterday as I went into a search, because Katie sends me and she goes, hey, what about this one? And I'm like, well, sure, if I can locate it. Hold on a minute. Let me try to find a bottle of this thing. And I started texting and calling a few people, and we got it quickly. It was easy.
Yeah.
It was good.
I was impressed. You were like, got it in. And there's like,
I was a little Smokey and the Bandit to it. Yeah, it was like, okay, where's the bottle? But that's okay.
Well, even when I was asking Matt, he was like, "You're trying to find one you can both get." I don't know, like that's it. You see. I was like, well, I have faith in Chase. He'll find it.
Yeah, and I did. We're all good. It's right here in front of me, so we're fine. But no, it's one of the things for newcomers or people that go on the trail and they decide they want to check it out. You're going to get those bottles that have a little higher proof, because my preferred drink is a really complex thing like this that's sitting in that 110 to 125 proof. I like a hotter bourbon. I'm very impressed by the bourbons in the 90s that have a ton of complexity that I really like. I'm like, hey, that's very well done, because it can give me those pops that I'm not expecting with a lower proof bourbon. But this is sitting sort of right in my wheelhouse. I can even get hotter and be fine too with that complexity of it. But it's worth one if you're going to do that. We typically sort of rate it on a 1 to 10 scale, and I mean it's every bit of a 9. I mean this is really, really good.
I enjoy it. I defer to you on the rating, but I really enjoy it.
They're all 10s. On the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, they're all 10s. That's what we do.
I know. Well, and I loved what we were talking about the other day, too, of how so much of the experience of tasting something is also who you're with and what
That's
that, like, it's, those moments where maybe later you go back and try it and it's not your favorite, but in that moment with who you were with and what you were doing, it was the best thing you ever tasted. Because it's that experience and moment and the people that you were with that I think that's another piece of this, of just back to, it's about the people. It's about relationships. It's about who you enjoy these things with. Like at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I've had shocks to my senses where I've had the dinner that's fantastic, and you have the drink and you go, that is up there with whatever, and it is fantastic. You have the next day and you go, it's good, it's fine. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, but we weren't having the salmon or the steak with my buddy, and it's the whole thing, the dinner and the whole situation. So no, it's completely different there. And you mentioned this in the opening, and I wrote it down as you were talking, and it's what I find. Everybody talks about worldwide, you get, Napa and wine country and the way you do wine tastings. And it's a very similar thing with bourbon. But in a lot of ways, bourbon gives you the better stories. The distilleries have so much more of a rich history than, not that the wineries don't, but you know what I mean. It's set in a location like this, and it's got such regionality to it, and it's what your mission was in this is when you're hearing everything about it and you're going through these distilleries and you're talking to people. What was it that clicked for you and Lewis Communications that said, hey, we're taking this regional product, but it's not actually a regional product. It's about, this is a worldwide conversation that we have to try to pair together at that point?
Yeah. Gosh, that's a good question, because there's so much to that answer. There were so many pieces to it, just even what we knew about Kentucky bourbon, but also what we see happening in the bourbon industry. It's like Kentucky is the home of bourbon, and we know how widespread the love of bourbon has become, that it's something that is truly, it is around the world. It's bringing people together, which again, how cool, just as we've been prepping for this worldwide toast to Kentucky bourbon, the people that we have talked to from all over the world that can share a story, that can talk about what they love, what they appreciate, then also talk about what they're doing in their country that's different, but also how it's been inspired by what's happening with Kentucky bourbon. So the way they're learning from each other. So I think, that was something that we kept at the forefront of all of our thinking. And again, and I know the team, like, again, we've all talked so much about everything from the look, the feel, how people experience this. They have to feel and see how much bigger it is than Kentucky, because it's something for everyone. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is invited to this. Everyone can be a part of this. And so many people around the world are a part of this.
Yeah, and we'll get into it now. We'll come back out of this. I got more questions, but the World Bourbon Toast coming up here on Tuesday. I know you're excited. You're probably a little anxious, probably a little nervous, all at once. And again, you can go to kybourbontrail.com/World Bourbon Toast. I know I have talked to some of my Bourbon Club people, try to get some things going for Tuesday when it comes into our time zone, or just when people are meeting as well. But give a very brief description of sort of the idea behind it and what's going on here. Probably tomorrow by the time this loads.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we were laughing. This started as kind of a small idea by one of our owners, and it has snowballed in the best way possible. And again, the enthusiasm and excitement that every person that we're talking to, they're like, oh my gosh, we want to be a part of that. How do we get in on that? And that's kind of what led to, again, hey, why don't we do this in every time zone? We've learned a lot about time zones. I will also fully admit, had no idea the 38 time zones in the world, and that
there are 38 time zones in the world.
There are 38 time zones in the world, according to UTC.
I would have missed that question over and over and over again.
You and me both.
I bet 88% of the country would say 24.
Oh, yes. So, and I'll admit, that's what I thought. I wrongly thought that. And as we started investigating this, we're like, oh my gosh, there's so many time zones. There's time zones that don't start at the top of every hour. There's very random time zones that start at, quarter after or on the half hour mark. It's been a fascinating process to learn about all of this. But so we're technically doing this for 26 hours as we are making our way through the time zones. But we thought, what better way to invite people to this celebration, but let's also try to connect with them where they are in their time zone. We're going to have some special guests all throughout the day lined up. We've got people from Australia and Ireland and Canada and Italy. There are going to be special guests joining us as we toast. And we want to find out from people, what are customs in where you are? How does everybody cheers? How do you toast? What do you say when you toast? Because I think that's another piece too. There's so many, bourbon is rooted in this history and heritage and tradition. And so it's really cool to hear from people around the world how they do it in their country and what do they say and what does it mean to them. So that's been really cool to see.
So people can pick up this live stream starting it when it begins for 26 hours. It will be right there, clickable on your website or on Bourbon Trail's website.
Yes, people can just go to worldbourbontoast.com, and there will be a link that they can click to go to the live stream. It'll be live streaming on YouTube, and then we'll have those special guests joining us at different hours throughout the day. We technically on our end will be starting at 9 p.m. Monday night, and we will go through 11 p.m. on Tuesday.
Central time zone.
Central time zone. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
What has been spinning this week with time zones? I think all of our heads have been. It's been so funny just confirming and reconfirming where everybody is. So it'll be fun. But we're going to have the KDA is going to be in DC for the Bourbon Caucus on Tuesday. And so they're actually going to join us on Monday night for our very first toast from Jack Rose in DC.
Okay.
And so that'll be a fun special guest that, join it in your time zone whenever you want to join. So you never know, something will be happening at the top of many hours.
You've talked to me about conversations with people from Ireland, Canada, Australia. Is there a central theme that you've found with the international people that you've discussed this with as far as what they think about bourbon and the way we're talking about family and camaraderie and all these things? I mean, is that something that translates into those places? I mean, why bourbon for them, and kind of what sort of impacts do you get from the international people that you speak to?
Yeah. And again, we're just getting to talk to some of these people for the first time. I know that the KDA and these groups have friendships and work together quite a bit. But I think that's what's standing out to us is how much they learn from each other and the impact that they see that is happening in Kentucky and how things are communicated, things that they are pushing for that benefit the industry as a whole. I think that's fascinating to listen to how they collaborate on those things. And you hear people from other countries saying, we're looking to what they're doing in Kentucky because it's so much bigger than Kentucky, what they're doing that helps us as a country learn what we should do. There's things that, they're willing to share what they're doing right, things that they wish they would have done different. There's this open, honest transparency with each other, which again, that central theme of relationships. And this piece that it's just, I think it's really cool to watch how, again, even from a world standpoint, everybody's coming together going, how do we help each other? How do we help make this better for people? How do we learn from each other and continue sharing that with each other?
And I think people, no matter where they are on their bourbon process or their journey or whatever buzzword you want to use, if they come into your live stream, they're gonna hear from really passionate people. They're gonna hear from people inside the industry that have insights or simply tell you their story. And you're probably gonna hear from somebody who go, hey, I want to try their bourbon or their whiskey or whatnot because of that at the same time. I think there's a lot of really neat stuff there. And one of the things that in a lot of ways can bring people together are these barrel picks. The other bottle that we have right now, Russell's Reserve Private Barrel Selections from different places. Yours is from an establishment in Tennessee. I don't know whether to say those or not or whatnot. I can for mine. It comes from High Cotton in Oxford, Mississippi. Great barrel program with Aaron and his team there. Mine was dumped in 2023. You and I were both reading to see if we were from the same warehouse, maybe even the same floor. But that's one of the cool things about barrel picks in general is that there's a certain level of story behind every one of them. People that you potentially know, people that are local to your area, people that, do a lot of the things in the same vein that you do, chose this barrel for a reason. You get to, a liquor store that has a great barrel program, you start figuring out what their tastes are, what their palates are, whether you like it or not, if they try to do something clever or different with one of them at the same time. And if I my advice that we give, and we give this over and over again, but I think it's worth mentioning in every episode, is if you go into a liquor store and they have a big barrel program, ask them about it, talk to them. They're going to give you probably a story, a suggestion of the barrel picks, and pick up the barrel picks, because you're getting a different interpretation of that distillery's thing that they've been so good at. It is a different variation of that and of their kind of personality and their flavor profile and the things that exist with them. So I'm really a proponent of barrel picks. I love them for a lot of ways, including just when you taste them for the first time, you don't know what you're going to get. When you taste the Russell's Reserve 10-year, you know pretty much what that's going to taste like, and the consistency is what's so important. But with the barrel picks, it's going to be a little, one way or the other. It's going to give you a different profile that's, really interesting. You and I were discussing, the staves and things where you can really make it complicated with like a maker's, and I mean complicated in a good way, but you can really fine tune it at that point. So I thought it was neat that we both can have a barrel pick that comes from the same place, the same facility in general, but yet not just our palates are different. It might literally have a different profile, even though it is a bourbon that has essentially been aged the same amount of time and everything. We both have 8-year bourbons, for better or worse. It's one of those where, you don't know what is going to be there, but it's quality because it comes from a name and a distillery that's done bourbon really well for a really long time. Sorry, I'm kind of losing my train of thought there.
I do that all the time. I understand.
I'll rattle on and on and on. By the way, I was eating a saltine a second ago. That is a great way to clear your palate between bourbons. A saltine, or even a wine sommelier taught me to just sniff your arm right above your wrist, and for whatever reason that clears your palate a little bit. You just kind of
that's great to
do
know.
a thing right there. Yeah, for whatever reason the smell and the nostrils, that kind of clears it up. So yeah,
that's great. Now, have you learned which nostril is your dominant nostril?
No clue. What now?
This was a fascinating thing to me.
Okay, go ahead.
Had no idea this was even a thing until, again, as we've been learning, you actually have a nostril that is dominant. And so we learned this at one of the tastings when they were walking us through, like some of those things you were talking about earlier of how you don't burn out your palate. It's like that first taste, like you were talking about. But another piece they were talking about is your dominant nostril. So if you take your glass and kind of split it to where you're smelling on one side and then smell the other, tell me if one nostril is stronger than the other, or you may smell different things.
Okay, now you're putting my mind into a pretzel, because I've never done that in my entire life. I closed one nostril and then closed the other one, and I'm getting completely different flavors of the same bourbon.
Yes, isn't it fascinating? Things I never knew.
I wouldn't have believed you. I'll be honest. Had you just told me that in a conference somewhere, I'd have went, shut up.
Whatever.
Give me a break. It's true.
Yes. I'll tell you, one of the first distilleries that taught us this, it's one of those things that we talk about. We're like, did you know my right nostril is more dominant than my left nostril?
I'm getting sweeter notes on the right, and I feel like the left is almost giving me the proof level. It's more like sharper and kind of almost burning a little bit, and getting me from that side.
Actually, that's so funny. My right side is sweeter. My left side is the more medicinal.
That's what I'm picking up as you're talking. Yes, 100%.
I mean, you learn something new every day, right?
I was looking for any other kind of tasting notes on this bottle, but I guess that's all we have. I know I'm 110 proof. Are you 110 proof as well?
This one.
It's on the front.
This is 110 proof. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And back to what you were saying about barrel picks too. I know that's something that I've watched again as Matt has gotten to know different people and go different places. I think he's even finding the different liquor stores around town that he starts to know. I typically love their picks because of either flavor profiles that they typically lean towards, which I think is such another. Yes. And it's like it's not even the same across liquor stores. It's like you start to realize some of them have different things that they gravitate towards. I think that's such a cool component of that barrel pick piece.
Yeah, it's one of the things with it's two things. One, you're going to learn flavor profiles. You're going to learn they have what you like or what you don't like, and then it's one of the ways to sort of get in with them too, because you start really talking about barrel picks, you're more likely to find something that maybe is allocated or put behind the shelf or something in that vein as well. Once you show an interest in your product, I mean, you always laugh at the guy. You don't just walk in and go, "So, what you got back there? Good luck." Yeah,
Right.
that's not really how that works. So just
Exactly.
you have to form relationships. That's what bourbon's about. Period. So that works in the liquor store too from that way.
Yes. And I will tell you, I am tasting this one for the first time. I've never tasted this before.
Yeah, I am too. I have not had this before at all. What are you getting? What do you got?
It is sweet to me. And I don't taste the char that I was tasting on the back end of the Russells. I don't get that in this. This tastes more full on sweet to me, or sweeter. But it's not sicky sweet.
It's a light sweet. I think we have maybe very similar bottles here. Honestly, I think they've come out the same way, because when you were talking and I was talking, when you were talking, I was thinking about it, and it is a light nose. There's not a ton there. It's floral. It's not even like citrus, because you're not getting a ton of acid. It's flowery. It's floral. Maybe some vanilla on the front, and then when you start actually tasting it, it's not like sugar and honey. It's not that kind of sweet. It's light. It's vanilla. It's the just sort of mid palate, mid level there. But you're getting no oak. You're getting no char. There's nothing in there that is that leather and dark chocolate. Like, that's not what this is at all. This is very, very light. I mean, this is something that, if you can have a 110 proof bourbon that you kind of think you almost could drink this in hot weather, that's what I feel like with this, because it's not something that's going to weigh you down where, the bourbon version of having a chocolate stout or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice.
It is highly drinkable. It feels like a 110 proof bourbon for somebody who likes the 90 to 95 proof wheat bourbons. The really easy drinking, not sweet, but very easy to go down. It feels like the higher proof version of that, because, and look, that makes for a really great bourbon, because what this bottle is doing is giving you that type of flavor profile in a package that's 110 proof. Because you're talking about these two bourbons here with the Russell's 13 and now the Russell's are barrel pick that's in front of me at least. They're only separated by 4 proof points. So they're essentially the same alcohol content. But that Russell's 13 has way more pop, way more finish, and they're nowhere similar on their taste profiles at all. Had you told me this second one that we're trying was 95 proof, I would have believed you without even thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny because I was thinking about that. Yeah, the higher proof of the 13 year, the Russell's Reserve lower proof taste is hotter to me than the 13 year.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. On the back end, kind of stinging a little bit.
And longer.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I think that's so interesting. The proofing is so fascinating to me and again, like just watching Matt's bourbon journey and listening to him talk about things of where.
It's her husband, by the way.
Oh yes, my husband Matt.
Yeah.
But listening to him talk about how, it's like, I think it's like anything, your palate adjusts and then you get used to things. I mean, shoot, even after being when we did our deep dive and spent over a week on the trail, I realized where I started at the beginning of the week versus by the end of the week. Things that I was able to taste, and it tasted different, and it's just your palate adjusts and you acquire a taste for. It seems like the same is true on proofs. I'm curious, have you experienced that where like now it's got to be a certain proof to a point because you've done so many high proofs?
I've been asked that question if I've burned out my palate, and I don't think that's true, because there is one of the two that we're doing next week that is the Asian bourbon I thought was incredibly interesting, and it was under 100 proof. And I gave it a very high grade. I want to say I graded it in the 8s, and I don't do that typically for something under 100 proof, just simply because it doesn't fit me. I'm wanting it to jab me a little bit when it's talking. So yes, I think so to an extent, but I do think it's just simply what I like, and it's what I do the most of. It's what I'm going to gravitate toward. I have to be careful not to shun a lot of lower proof options because it's what I mentioned. If you have the really well done lower proof option, you're still getting the complexities. You're still getting things in there that you might not even get at the higher proof. It's the proof and age, I feel like, are two things that a lot of people go, oh, I just like this. But it's so varied. I don't think that's fair to every other bourbon or every other distiller out there because you can also have a bourbon that is better at 10 than 15. I mean, you can have one that's aged too much. I mean, from if you get stuck on an age standpoint. Now, there are certain characteristics to a 4 or 6 year bourbon that you're just going to pick up because it's not at its height if you're talking about really the ways to maximize it. But as you're just sort of getting into it, but you've done so much research and you visited these distilleries, I don't know the answer. You might tell me absolutely not, and you might tell me yes. We're talking about Kentucky, a region, a state for the trail, so there's not a ton of geographic difference on distance. But are there certain similarities between the distilleries in each region? I mean, can you regionalize it at all on what they at least theme or produce in any way?
Personally, I don't think so, but I also, from a product standpoint, I wouldn't, maybe somebody would feel differently about that. I definitely can't speak to that. But I think, like, back to the regions thing and that aspect of people just don't know Kentucky that aren't, people in the United States that have never been to Kentucky, they have no idea. Back to what you were talking about with the regions, something that was so funny to us is the story, funny, not funny, the stories of, people flying into Louisville thinking that, I'm going to Uber to Four Roses and then I'm going to Uber back to downtown Louisville where I'm staying. That is not possible. You cannot easily get an Uber at Four Roses. And so I think just, the different experiences you get in different regions, I can speak to what we've seen so far. That's why it's like, don't think that just because this one is like this, that's what they are all like in this region. They're all different. They all have something unique to them. They all have a unique story. Even if, processes are similar or all that, they each have a unique story. So I think that's the fun and honestly, what we were trying to really keep at the center forethought of what we were doing is we want people to explore. We want them to explore all of them, big, small, medium size, the ones you've heard of, the ones maybe you've never heard of. I think that's the beauty of it is that, and that's continuing to grow every day because of all the new additions to that makes it fun that, I think people are even starting to realize if they haven't been in 3 years, it's going to be totally different 3 years later. Because of how they keep evolving and the things that keep changing and the additions that they keep making. It's amazing. Sorry, that was probably
that was perfect. It's one of the things that you guys, that you pointed out to me that has been a very important point for the trail is that everybody's on one trail. There's not multiple trails. It's not, you're not divided depending on what your size or your abilities are or anything along those lines as far as quantity. And I think that's a huge point is that, the people that are listening to me, they've heard this tell me the story, so I'm not going to repeat it. But there's the bourbon that I had in New Orleans that became a fascination of mine that I tried to find it. And part of the reason why was I'd never heard of it. I'd tried something new and went, oh, wow, that was really, really, really good. And I've never seen that bottle. I've never heard of it. And then you mentioned stories. I go, okay, why is it called that and what's their story? And I start kind of Googling and looking around and trying to find the bottle. There's an easy world when you're doing this that sure, you can go to the trails and you can go to, Russell's, Wildsburg, one of the ones that are huge and one of the big ones that you're always going to know is with the Heaven Hills or the Four Roses or Woodford or whatnot. But then you stop into that small one and you find something, you find a bottle. You've done two things. You've expanded your knowledge, you've expanded your palate, you've added something else to the repertoire. You've heard a great story because they're a small distiller that's gotten on the trail. So how have they done that? What's their history to even get them there? And then you've probably been able to pick up a bottle, and if you like it, you've added a conversational piece, because if you've not heard of it, your friends probably haven't either. So when you take it home and you put it on the shelf and you've got it, and they go, well, what about this? You go, well, I was talking to the owner, and I've got, and suddenly you have a story too, and here we go, and we're off and running as it goes. And it's, as you were doing your run through, and clearly you had a business purpose, do you have tips for that? I mean, if people go into the trail, go into distillers, just trying to figure out sort of how to navigate it when they go in, however you want to phrase or comment on that, what are sort of the do's or the do's and don'ts, or what did you sort of learn on the best ways to approach that?
Sure. That's such an important piece of what we're trying to do for people is, we've talked so much with the KDA about this, of how do we bring a better educated visitor to all of the distilleries, because that helps everybody. And I think, something we learned and we knew was, with this boom in bourbon, there's a point where they're like, we have no problem getting people here. What we're trying to now do is educate them before they get here so that they can plan better. So that, a lot of people don't realize some of these distilleries have a 3-month waiting list to even get on a tour. Well, if you're coming from California, Washington, and you think you're just going to show up and walk into a tour, and what I think is incredible about, and I think this is, again, the nature of the industry and these, how they work is, when that happens, we've heard so many stories from all of these distilleries of how they pivot and how their teams pivot to try to figure out, okay, how can we still give this person an experience? It may not be the full experience, but what can we do? And you're seeing distilleries that have added little quick 15-minute tastings that they can accommodate walk-ins, or they can accommodate a shorter notice so that somebody can still have an experience. So I think there's education of how to plan the trip. I think there's education of the geography of Kentucky to know that you may go to this one, but you need to look at what's the drive between this one and the next one that you want to go to. But then, and that's one of the tools that we're trying to bring to people with the website, is how to better plan that trip, and also help them discover things that may not have even been on their radar, because it's like, hey, did you know this one that maybe you haven't heard of is 10 minutes down the road? Work this into your trip, because you don't want to miss this one. They've got a great story to tell. So trying to educate people from that standpoint. And I think so many of these, that saying, don't judge a book by its cover. We even had experiences as we'd go to one that was smaller, and we thought, okay, I wonder how long, this might be 20 minutes, 30 minutes to see this. And we'd be there 4 hours, because we're talking to people, we're learning about their story. And it was some of the best experiences, which I think, so that's what I would tell people from that standpoint, is go in with an open mind, and just be excited to explore and learn something, and hear a great story. But then from the planning piece and how you actually navigate it, we're trying to, that was one of our goals with the website that I think we've really helped accomplish, is how to help people plan better.
There's literally a tab, a story for know before you go, and then one about building your own bourbon trail, where you can use the website, you can use the technology that you have available to put it in, find things in that location, and really build out the entire itinerary there on your website. Again, that's kybourbontrail.com.
And, that's another piece too that our team talked so much about, is what I want to experience on my bourbon trail journey may be totally different than what you want to experience. And that's the piece that we think is so important, that it can look however you want it to look. It is your bourbon trail. You can create whatever kind of experience that you want. And so that was another thing too, is trying to help people understand, with that first impression of what does this distillery offer? Because again, some are these ultra modern experiences with these culinary experiences that I think if you don't know, you wouldn't expect that. And that's what we want to help people see, that you can have that type of experience, or maybe you only want to go to the ones that you've never heard of, that are these small distilleries in Kentucky and these beautiful landscapes. Kentucky is so beautiful, like the drive through there. And again, there's so much more to do in Kentucky, which we've also been trying to highlight so that people have ways to break up those trips and do more in Kentucky.
And you mentioned a couple times, so all this is run by the Kentucky Distillers Association, correct? I think you said KDA and whatnot. That is what we're associating there.
Yes.
And so they started the trail. Is that the way that, or at least the marketing to combine everyone? I guess you would say.
And no, they started the Kentucky Bourbon Trail with 7 distilleries 25 years ago. And again, they had the best problem ever. They outgrew themselves. It was so popular and it's grown so much. It was time to rethink that and rethink what that experience is for people. And I may have said this earlier, but again, when you meet all of these people, they are driven and passionate about people's experiences, and they want people to have the best experience possible, whether it's coming to their distillery, whether it's having their product, whether it's interacting with somebody on the trail. They're all focused on how do we make this the best for people.
What's your Tuesday, Monday going to look like? Are you going to sleep for 26 hours at any point, or what is your path here starting tomorrow?
I will tell you, we've got a whole team out there. Everybody's been working so hard to bring this together, and there's a lot of moving parts and pieces and logistics involved. And I think we're all saying September 18th will be when we can crash for a minute, and we'll sleep then.
What can people do? So they want to participate in World. Obviously, we know from a trail standpoint, go to the website, plan your trip, see the regions, all those things. But as far as Tuesday, and this goes for me as well, I want to participate. We're going to continue to talk about it going into that. How can people help you? How can they help themselves? How can they see everybody? What does this look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So number of ways. We've been telling people, if you can't join the live stream, that's okay. You can toast and post wherever you are, hashtag World Bourbon Toast, and tag the KBT, Kentucky Bourbon Trail. And so we'd love for as many people around the world to do that as possible. Because again, we want to bring people and highlight people from all over the world raising a toast to Kentucky bourbon. So that's one way. You can join the live stream and watch it whenever you want. Again, we'll be there. So with special guests. But yeah, so if you want to actually join the live stream, you can. Otherwise, just toast and post and hashtag World Bourbon Toast.
So when you got started, and you said you started the account with Casey Jones, and you got into the world of bourbon at the very beginning, did it take long at all for you to realize, hey, these people I want to be around, this is a community I want to be around? Just kind of coming full circle here. I mean, was that a pretty instantaneous thing that you meet those people and go, wow, this is something neat that I do want to be involved in to whatever extent?
Absolutely. And I feel like I can speak on behalf of probably everybody at our agency that has touched this in any way, shape, or form, which is a lot of people. We have all said the people are so positive and happy and wonderful to work with. And, there's, like anything, people have different opinions, but it's a group of people that you can have conversations with, you can talk to ultimately get to the best place. And I think that's been clear from all the way from when we were working with Casey Jones to now this experience. It's prevalent in the industry. And it's something that I think we've all fallen in love with this industry for and want to be a part of. I mean, in my 20 plus years, I can hands down say this is the most fun thing I have ever worked on. One of my favorite clients I've ever worked with. But it's because of the people. I mean, it truly is. It's the people you look forward to talking to, and you're excited to talk together and collaborate. Like, that's been a really fun piece of this too, is just the collaboration with that entire team as well as the distillers. That's another, sorry, so many
No,
things.
go. Have at it. Yeah,
I
you're
know
good.
all the things. But that was something else that when we started this journey, we fully anticipate. We're like, gosh, these people are so busy. They have so much going on. And everybody, hands down, that we have reached out to has been so more than willing to make time to have conversations with us because they knew what we were doing. They knew what the Kentucky Distillers Association was trying to do. And everybody has wanted to be a part of that and wanted to help that and make it the best that it can be. And I think that's even a piece that really stood out to us, because I think you'd expect, like, oh, it's probably going to be easier with some than others, and some might not have time for us. And truly, no matter how big, no matter how small, they've all gone out of their way to make time to talk to us, to have conversations, to help us learn, to help us, discover and research the things and talk about the things and ask the questions and that we needed to for our team to be able to do the work that we did. And I think that's really unique. You don't find that every day. Sometimes you're dealing with industries or situations where everybody's not bought in to what everybody's trying to accomplish. And so I think for our team, as an agency, witnessing firsthand, wow, this across this entire group of people. And again, then you even extend that to the people we've talked to in other countries that aren't necessarily directly involved with this, but they're involved with this, who have been more than happy to make time to talk to us. That's remarkable. How everybody's bought in on doing what's best for people. Again, it just keeps coming back to people and their relationships.
Tell me about the Libby glass before we close
Okay.
out this thing. Yeah, tell me. I was dumb on this topic, so go ahead, educate us.
I think this is a cool thing that we want to help. Again, back to the education piece and awareness. And we thought this was so cool because we learned about it. So the Kentucky Distillers Association and the KBT patented this glass that, typically people are drinking it. We've got a ton of them at home, the Glencairns, to drink out of, but they specially made this one for bourbon. It has a larger nose on the glass to help with how you're smelling and how it opens that up, but also even just making it easier to drop a cube in it if that's how you like to enjoy your bourbon, because there's no wrong way to drink it. So, it was thinking about all of those components and what makes it easier. But it's a Libby glass that you can order these on Amazon.
So how many of those do you have at home now?
Well, now we have a set of 6.
Okay.
And, I told Matt, I was like, okay, we're going to have to eventually remove the Glencairns. That has not happened yet. We still have the Glencairns. But we got to support. We got to be all in.
Do you feel like you are noticing a difference? I mean, can you pick up a difference in that glass?
I do think I noticed a difference smelling. I think it softens it to where I don't just get hit with sometimes the harshness. So I think I've noticed that, but then also just even, it does make it easier to stick an ice cube in it. If that's how you like to drink your bourbon, which I appreciate.
You mentioned them on Amazon. I tell you that the thing that I'm probably going to order, I was kind of Googling while you were talking here a second ago, and they have it in a tasting set where you can get the 4 with the wooden paddle thing under it to sit them on. So it's a pretty cool display case for the bar, in addition to simply the more pragmatic purposes that it may serve there for your glasses. Because rocks glasses are not the best way to drink the bourbon unless you're doing the cocktail or throwing the cube in it and just having at it. And we've always stuck to these Glencairns. I've got them in my hand right now as we're talking. But yeah, I saw a little different shape to your glass, and you mentioned it. And I went, oh, that's interesting. I kind of was like a dog that cocked my head to the side for a second. I was like, whoa, hold on a minute. What are we doing here? So yeah, they're inexpensive. They're available, so you can you can look into that as well. Well, look, hey, I appreciate it so much. I hope that you have the next 48, 72 hours without any technical difficulties whatsoever. Make sure everything runs across smoothly. I know that you've got multiple live streams going. Even had some issues with, hey, how do we make things go longer than a day? Because that is not common in our world of technology. It seems like I know you have a large team that you work with, and it feels like there's probably a lot of things we're not aware of here that have had to go into this just from a technology standpoint. Because I'm just smart enough to be dangerous. And as you were telling me things, I went, whoa, I don't know. I would be very, very nervous right now.
Oh my gosh, it's been a learning experience, and it really, I think it's been also cool to see, okay, we're doing something that everybody hasn't done, which is also a fun thing to figure out together. Because I am one of a large team, but we so appreciate you, being willing to help us spread the word on this. And thank you so much for having me today. I so appreciate it. It's been fun talking to you.
Yeah. No, it's been fantastic. Katie Peninger, Lewis Communications, again, the Kentucky Bourbon Trail 25th anniversary, celebrating that with the World Bourbon Toast. That's worldbourbontoast.com, kicking off in the Central Time Zone on Monday and going all the way through for 26 hours there. So, Katie, again, good luck. See you soon. Thank you, and let's do it again.
All right, sounds great. Thanks, Chase.